I am 28 years old, a woman, and I have a twin brother. Since childhood, we were raised as opposites. He was called gifted and promising, and I was difficult, too loud, too alive. My parents seemed to live with a ruler in their hands. They compared grades, character, friends, compared our manners at the table, and every time I turned out to be not the right one. I loved running, street basketball, and school events. I could make friends easily, while he learned to play the piano and collected certificates. In their minds, this meant one thing. He was the pride, I was the problem. On our birthdays, there were parties at home, but in reality, they were always my brother's parties. He had balloons, a cake with his name, guests for a sleepover. My girlfriends? It was inconvenient to invite them. The house is noisy enough. I was told the party was joint, but in the photos I stood on the side, like someone who accidentally ended up in the frame. The only person who saw me was my grandmother. She brought hazelnut chocolate, stroked my head and whispered, "You are stubborn and kind. That's not a flaw, it's strength." Sometimes she gave me a couple of dollars for a small joy, tiny islands of warmth in an icy kitchen where praise for someone else always sounded, and my "why aren't you like your brother" did too. Over the years, favoritism turned into a system of punishments. If I stumbled, I was mocked in front of him. Watch and learn. In my second year of high school, I was punished for creating a TikTok account. I just wanted to message classmates and post funny videos from practice. My parents considered it a violation of the rules, rummaged through my things, took the door off its hinges, and said that privacy is for responsible people. And as long as I lived under their roof, no independence, my brother, instead of asking how I was, only smirked. He quickly realized that his word was law and mine was noise that could be ignored, and he used it. If money disappeared from Dad's wallet, if something broke, if an unpleasant note appeared in the gradebook, I was the one at fault. He did it calmly, without malice in his voice, like a person confident in impunity. Probably her again. When I tried to argue, my parents sighed in irritation. "We don't have the strength. Stop it." Time after time, he reshaped reality to suit himself. I was sociable and had many friends, but that became the reason for his envy. Social contact was hard for him. He got lost, stayed silent at parties, and hated my ease. The peak came on our 14th birthday. His friends didn't come. I still don't know why. Mine invited me for ice cream. We laughed, took photos against neon lights. I came home and for the first time in a long while felt alive. He, however, was seething with anger. The next day, he started spreading silly but sticky rumors at school. Supposedly, I behaved promiscuously, lied to teachers, and hid him at home, taking advantage of the fact that our parents controlled me less. To prove out the last part, he started leaving marks on himself, bumping his shoulder against a door jamb, pressing his arm against the table to leave a bruise, coming back from practice with a black eye and whispering to someone, "She snapped." At school, everyone saw these bruises, and at home, he placidly said he fell at soccer. The rumors spread like spilled syrup on a table. Sticky, unbearable, everywhere. First, they stopped inviting me to the movies. Then no one sat at my table in the cafeteria. In the hallways, whispers and looks like needles. I decided to ask my former best friend why she had distanced herself. She said quietly, "I don't want to get involved. There's a lot being said about you. Your brother, he's telling horrible things." I felt as if I fell into a void. I'd been shifted to another side of the scale, and no one wanted to check whether there was truth on it. Teachers began peering at me suspiciously, as if looking for a crack in my voice. The principal summoned both of us together with our parents. I hoped for a miracle, that he would get tired of lying and stop. But everything repeated itself, evenly, confidently, habitually. He described how I raised a hand against him, how I competed with him, how I hated his successes. My mother burst into tears and hugged him. My father said he was proud of his courage. Not every boy dares to tell the truth. I tried to speak, but no one listened. The principal coldly announced a 10-day suspension. I cried, begged, explained, but my words shattered against glass. At home, the suitcase literally flew into the hallway. My father said, "You will not live under the same roof with him." Period. I stood barefoot on the cold tiles and repeated, "Please, please, it isn't true." In response, empty eyes. "If Grandma wants to, let her take you." And Grandma came. A small woman in a dark coat who entered like a storm. She packed my things, put me in the car, turned to the door, and said to my father firmly, without shouting, "Touch her again, and we're going to the police and child services." "She's a child. You had no right." My mother tried to offer an excuse. Grandma didn't even look her way. For the first time, I saw how steely her voice could be. We left. In the first days, I hardly ate, slept in snatches, and kept listening to the phone. Maybe my parents would call and say they had figured it out, that they were at fault. The phone was silent. Grandma cooked soup, stroked my shoulder, repeated that it wasn't my fault. I returned to school after the suspension as if to an enclosure of foreign gazes. I sat in the last row, went straight home after the bell. The friendships I had always reached for so easily dissolved like sugar in boiling water, without a trace. But I finished school. I clung to my studies like a rope. I got into college, and for the first time, it became easy to breathe there. No one compared me to an ideal. No one counted my steps. I found myself in text. I began writing notes, how-tos, stories for brands. First for pennies, then better. And then suddenly it turned out that I had a portfolio, clients, a name. I went to work remotely. The geography changed, the laptop and deadlines did not. The pain from the old years didn't vanish instantly, but when you build something of your own, a quiet knocking appears inside. I am managing. Grandma remained my only home. I visited her, pruned the roses in the yard, we baked apple charlotte, and argued over who would get the edge piece with caramelized crust. Recently, I closed a big contract with a well-known company, I can't name it. The team left a rave review, and I shared it on social media and on a professional platform. The post took off. Congratulations poured in. I was invited to speak at the college about content writing. I stepped onto the stage, my hands were trembling, but my voice was firm. I spoke about discipline, how text can change a life, and about gratitude to people who believe in you. The recording of the talk got into local media, and I was invited for an interview on the city TV channel. Relatives saw the interview. And then, my parents. One morning, there were 6 missed calls from my mother on my phone screen. I looked at the number 6 for a long time, as if it were the code to an old door. I called back. My mother spoke softly. My father joined and asked innocent questions: where I live, what I do, how much I earn. I replied that personal finances are personal. Then they got to the point. They were having a difficult period. The roof needs fixing. The loan is pressing. We're family. The transparent request for money became a direct one. Help with the repairs? It's natural. Children support their parents. I said no. Why should I? After everything you did. In response, the masks fell off. My mother hissed that I was ungrateful. My father said that children are obliged. I inhaled and calmly said, I am ready to help only in one case. You publicly admit in front of the whole family that my brother lied back then, that you kicked me out without reason, and you apologize. I knew they wouldn't agree. It was my condition, my way to set a boundary for the first time so that it would be visible even from afar. They exploded. This should be resolved within the family. Or don't air dirty laundry, and you're overreacting. I repeated, otherwise, no. After the conversation, the constant calls, messages, and voice notes began. I didn't answer. A couple of days of silence. And then a message from my brother arrived. Cold as ice from a freezer. Hey sis, heard you set up a circus condition for our parents? They'll never agree. And they're right. They never cared about you anyway. Yes, I exaggerated back then. It's been 15 years. Stop clinging to the past. You're not married, no kids, help with the repairs. What does it cost you? Stop being selfish. When I finished reading, a dull pain pierced my chest. He hadn't changed at all. Not a bit. I opened my laptop and wrote a letter to the family. Long, thorough, with facts, dates, small but important details. I described how I was put in the corner of excuses, how they took the door off its hinges, how he deliberately created bruises, how they pushed me out of the house. At the end, I attached a screenshot of his message with the phrase, yes, I exaggerated. It wasn't a full confession, but enough for people to consider that things weren't as they had been told. I clicked send. And for a second, the room became so quiet that I could hear my own pulse. The responses came quickly. Cousin aunts wrote cautiously, We didn't know. Uncles called and sighed heavily, Sorry, we stayed silent then. There were others too, offended, furious, with phrases like, why bring this up? And the past is the past. My parents and brother sent mocking messages, piling on insults as generously as if it could replace accountability. I saved everything and contacted a lawyer. He prepared a cease and desist letter and sent it officially. And in a moment, the noise subsided. Their usual lack of responsibility ran into paper with an official seal. A week passed, then a month. I worked, slept, sometimes woke up at 3 a.m. from an old memory, drank water, and returned to my texts. Grandma was nearby. We walked in the park, discussed which tomato varieties to plant. She showed me the seedlings, and I smiled and thought that here it was, a real home, where you are seen. I kept getting invited to seminars, recorded a podcast about the profession. Clients left warm comments. None of this erased the past, but it gave me a present. My parents no longer called, and it turned out not to be emptiness, but space. A space where I can arrange the furniture as I like. I found a psychotherapist and for the first time allowed myself to say out loud what I had always whispered inside. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was betrayed. Yes, I deserve respect. We arranged the years on the shelves, and each time I said it was unfair, it became a little easier to breathe. Sometimes I return in my thoughts to those years and see myself as a girl in the hallway, barefoot on cold tiles. I want to come up and tell her, you are not spoiled. You are not extra. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a person who was forgotten to be listened to. I would take her to Grandma, pour tea, put hazelnut chocolate on a saucer, and say, we will manage. And we did. Now I don't give money to people who abandoned me when I was a child. This isn't revenge. This is common sense. The responsibility for destroyed trust cannot be bought or sold. I set a condition they are not ready for. It's not my fault. It's simply the price of truth. And if one day they call again and say, we are ready to admit we were wrong, maybe I'll pick up. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe not. But now the decision will be mine. Meanwhile, I live my life. I write texts. I take care of Grandma's roses. I learn to enjoy quiet mornings and not to fear my own boundaries. And every time I pass a mirror, I stop for a second and think, there she is, that girl who once thought she was a nobody. And I smile at her, because she endured, because her voice can no longer be muted, because now it belongs to her.